นะเทียนไปไหนทีเนี้ยเดี๋ยวมันจะเข้าไปใน
Hello, flat earth researchers, debaters and debunkers. Just finished dealing with a cobra in our backyard. Hid behind the gas tank, had to chase it out. Talking of snakes, I want to kind of carry on trying to get this thing clear about how I believe that basically the heliocentric model that's been promoted as our physical reality is nothing more than a calendar. Nothing more than an illustration of keeping time. Yeah? So when you think about it, right, a lot of people say, oh, you know, it was only because of Newton's theories that certain planets and stuff were discovered. That's not true. You see, what you've got to remember is that Newton and his buddies, they worked for the East, they were shareholders, directors in the East India Company. They were the first people from the West to go off to, you know, Asia and far off lands and talk to the locals, you know, and of course they would have met the, you know, the top people in those countries, yeah, whether it's the Greeks, the Asians, whatever, the Indians, Chinese, you know, they were all over the place, yeah. I mean, they were coming. I think they came to Phuket. Well, the Greeks came to Phuket. The Greek map makers came to Phuket in the 1500s or something, yeah. So, you know. People have been exploring the world and keeping track of the stars for many years, many thousands of years before Newton and his ilk came along. So, you see, just think, right? Tracking the stars and their movements, especially the wandering stars and the moon and the sun, yeah? All it is really is about keeping time, yeah? For all these other people that have, throughout the ages and across continents that have been tracking the stars, they've all got their own little way of mapping it out, right? But it's essentially, you know, planet Mars will be in this place at this time, and then, you know, 12 months later, or a year and a half later, or 10 years later, it's going to be in this place at this time. Yeah, same with the sun, same with the moon, okay? So they're following all these movements, and of course they don't move as one. Of course, okay, the stars do. They seem to move as one. The wandering stars, each of them is doing its own thing, yeah? And so of course they've all got their own little times. Mars has got its time, however long it takes. I can't remember if it's under a year of ours or more than a year. Venus and what have you, yeah? So they're just tracking time, yeah? They don't know how far away those wandering stars or the sun or the moon are, yeah? Well, there are methods which we're going to talk about, but they don't know also how fast those things are going. You know, if Mars, for example, is really close, then it doesn't have to go very fast to do a circuit. Whether it's going around the sun or going around the earth, the wacky thing is about this, and the beauty of this, which above all else indicates intelligent design, is that you can look at it as a geocentric thing. You know, you can look at Mars and Venus and everything going around the Earth, and they obviously did that for thousands of years. It's the most natural way to talk about it, yeah. So and when they drew the diagrams of the movements of these stars, wandering stars, then yeah, they seem to make elliptical orbits. Or but it's still beautiful sacred geometry. I mean, you look at some kind of spirograph thing of the geocentric model. It's beautiful, and we see that all the time. Yeah, we see it in shells, we see it in our own DNA. Nature does spirals. There's nothing weird about that, and that would indicate some kind of, you know, energetic process going on as well. I mean, look at coils in electricity, and again, electromagnetism makes so much more sense as far as talking about things moving and the Earth. We're on one big magnet anyway, right? Okay, so you know, the gravity thing based on mass has never ever been proven or used, but of course electromagnetism, we understand, we use it all the time, right? So seems like a fairly logical explanation to me, and electromagnetism still uses this inverse square law, the same as Newton applied to his gravitational theories, right? So he's basically talking about the same thing, but it's funny because the electromagnetism and the inverse square law of that came along, I'm not sure whether it was in Newton's lifetime, but just before him, but he didn't, you know, Brohm's law, I think. So it's in a way, it's like Newton just pilfered that and adapted it for his own purpose. You know, it's not, Newton didn't think of the inverse square law. He just kind of, you know, said, oh, gravity does that, you know, all right? And of course, you've got to think, this is at a time when this is the renaissance of the Western sciences, yeah? This is where they're all wearing their wigs and their fluffy collars, and they think they're the bee's knees. They, you know, they're making steam engines and massive ships and, you know, industry, and they're going across the world and starting to eat potatoes and you know, they're high on their own cleverness, you know, at the time. Thing is, you know, they're going off to Asian countries and wherever, or the Middle East, and they're just picking up all the knowledge that those guys have already kind of kept for like thousands of years, okay? So what did they come back with? What did they come back with from those travels, yeah? They came back with data. Reams and reams of data are basically the positions that certain planets or the moon or the sun would be at a certain time. Yeah? Nothing about what goes around what. And actually, well, they would have all been geocentric systems, right? Pretty much, that they were looking at. Yeah? So they're all focused on the Earth being the center, and whether it, you know, the wandering stars doing their thing, right? So, but Newton wants a kind of like, you know, he wants a beginning and an end. Yeah, this is something that's very different with Asian way of thinking and the Western way of thinking. And I've even done it teaching students, you know, about how we use our tenses in English. The past simple, future, what have you. You have to do a diagram in which you use linear time. You know, you say that's the past on the left, there's the present right now in the middle, and there's the future in front. But that still doesn't register with them very well, because to Asians, time is cyclical. Yeah, there is no beginning or end. But Newton's worldview was, you know, a beginning and some catastrophic end. Yeah, okay. So he's approaching it from a totally different standpoint anyway. And this guy was a politician, a banker, a hedge funder. You know, he was in charge of the mint, the Royal Mint for umpteen years. Yeah, come on. He wasn't really a scientist. He was a mathematician. He was a mathematician. Right, so where does all this go? So, I've kind of explained it before, but I want to make sure it's really clear in people's heads, because it's really, really simple, and it's even there in the mainstream. It's kind of said like this, but it doesn't really come across like that. But basically, yeah, so it's a calendar. Now, the geometry, the mathematics, this new mathematics, geometry, comes along, and as people rightly say, It was created to to illustrate the shape of the Earth. Okay, fine. So what? How did they do this? There was no knowledge ever that the Earth is round. How would they ever know? How would aristocracies, or whatever his name was, get up in a spaceship and have a look at the Earth? Yeah? And again, doesn't matter which way you swing it. You can have the moon at the center of your model. You can have the Earth at the center of your model. You can have the sun at the center of your model. Ultimately, everything ends up doing cycles which have, it doesn't matter which way you look at it, it all ends up the same. You still get the stars and the moon and everything coming around when they're supposed to come around. Yeah? The moon does months, the sun does seasons, so a year, and then whatever, the wandering stars do their thing. Yeah? So, as I said yesterday, 1 year, one whole year of seasons with the equinoxes and the solstices, etc., is 365 days plus. So the banking cartel that was Newton and his buddies, yeah, they used geometry to illustrate the passage of time, which has been done by referencing the movements of the stars and the moon and the sun. Yeah? But they chose a heliocentric calendar as their model, because it's just, you can round it off, right? 360 degrees gives you the circle, and then you make up the rest of the time in leap years. Yeah? That's all it is, a calendar, a way of, just like a clock face. Yeah, it's a clock face. Oh, getting a bit busy around the market here. That's what they did. They thought, oh right, look, we can make this into a clock by giving it 360, by turning each day into a degree. Yeah. So, boom, they've sussed it. They've sussed a way to tell the time. By the planets with this kind of, you know, occulted knowledge that only they knew at the time. You know, where this is when they're first developing telescopes and looking through the smog. Yeah. So no one else had this knowledge. They could say what they wanted, come back from their travels and sit down and think about it. And so there you go. You've got people, and of course that's what Great Britain has done across the world, is gone and taken their calendar purely for trade, no other reason. You know, as Math Boylan pointed out, you know, Math Powerland pointed out, why have you got Russia 50 miles away from America, from Alaska, but they're on completely different time zones. You know, Russia's a day behind Alaska. Trade, just trade. That's all. Nothing physical changes. Yeah. So that's what they've done. Yeah, and that's why we have hours and minutes and seconds, and that just gets translated into the way you look at the stars. Yeah, stars are the positions of stars are recorded on a flat plane. Yeah, your horizon is 0, and your north, south, east, west is local to your position. Yeah, if I'm in England, my north, south, east, west is going to be different to a guy in Australia. Yeah, and that's the same on the globe anyway. Think about it. If you go east on a globe, then, well, you can't just carry on going straight because you'll end up going off into space. Yeah? You've got to go round anyway. Yeah? So it's no different on a flat Earth. Yeah? Every location you are has a slightly different orientation to north, which is the center. And then, okay, yeah, I'll get this one. This one. Yeah? All right. So, that's what they did. They had their calendar based on the stars and the planets. Now, during this Renaissance, when they're starting to figure out how things work and they want to be, you know, the guys in charge, the illuminated ones with all the knowledge, what do they then go and do? They tell you that the calendar they're using, based on a solar calendar, a solar year, is reality. Yeah? And you say it often enough, and it becomes real to you. You understand? It's never been, and then once you have your solar system with the sun in the middle and the planets around the outside of it, yeah, sure, you can say when Jupiter, Saturn, Mars is going to be in a certain position based on the math of thousands of that's been kept for thousands of years. You just look at the records. So these mathematicians, they look at the numbers and they can see the circles, right, in their heads. It just makes sense to them. But that doesn't tell you anything about their distance from the Earth or the speed that they are going. You can make any claim that you like. Once you know that even an eclipse is going to occur at a certain time, or the moon's going to be here, or the sun's going to be there at a certain time, you can say it's nearby and going very slowly, or you can say it's millions of miles away and going very fast and big. How the hell would we be able to tell the difference? They knew that. Newton, with his looking through his prisms as well, probably also worked out that the human eye works in that way, where you get the cone going down there and then back out again. Yeah, you've got two cones. There's a cone there to your horizon. Yeah, so the sea, if you're looking at the sea, comes up to the middle. The sky comes down. You can see as far as you can see, and then it all kind of comes together at the vanishing point. And then beyond the vanishing point, it goes back out again. That's why you can see stars and things, but the sun disappears behind the vanishing point. Boom, it's blocked. Yeah? Whether it's just, you think about the ships going off. We've probably all seen the red ship, the tanker ship, okay? It just gets fainter and fainter and fainter. It doesn't ever actually go down a curve, it just gets fainter. Of course, let's assume that the science about light bouncing off something into our eyes is true. Well, of course, the further away it gets, the more, first of all, the more squished it's going to get into the decreasing horizon, the further we can see. And it's, you know, it's going to be, there's going to be lots of water vapor and thick air molecules and what have you. There's just going to be a limit to which the light bouncing off of that tanker to our eyes just doesn't reach our eyes. So then, okay, if that tanker was shining a light, you know, shining a light to the observer, then you would see the light quite clearly. But even then, even at an even greater distance than that, the light itself is not going to reach you if it's on that level beyond the vanishing point. Yeah? There's just, you know, there's going to be a limit to how far you can see when you've got two elements meeting. You've got the water and the sky meeting and creating that kind of blurry line. Yeah? You can't, even if you've got the most powerful telescope, there's still going to be a limit to how far you can see with that if you're at sea level or ground level, because all the junk in the air is just going to get in the way. Yeah. So Newton knew that with his prisms. Yeah, he knew what was going on with the eyes, so they sussed out. They just sussed it out. We can tell him it's a circle based on our calendar. You know, 360. We'll mess around with the days. We'll keep the important days for the, you know, for the different religions. Okay, so that's hence you have the. Although you can divide 360 up into 12 months and get 30 days in each month, of course they'd have to play around a bit just to keep these people happy, those people happy with their religious days and what have you. You know, just a little tinkering here and there. But basically, essentially, that's what you've got. That's why you've got a circle. That's geometry, okay? The circle. All right? It's not a globe. It's not a physical reality. It's just a clock face representing a big clock up in the sky. Got it?